The envelope landed on the table with a slap that silenced the entire bar. Ava Reynolds stared at the contract inside. 30 days as a live-in caregiver to a widower and his daughter, or forfeit every cent in her savings account. Her best friend Maya had warned her not to bet against someone who never bluffed, but Ava's pride had cost her everything. Now she had 72 hours to pack her life into suitcases and move into a stranger's grief-filled home, leaving behind her studio, her freedom, and any illusion that reckless confidence didn't have consequences. Before we dive into Ava's journey from rock bottom to unexpected belonging, I invite you to follow this story all the way to the end. If you enjoy it, please hit that like button and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. The Sunday afternoon light filtered through Ava's apartment windows in golden streaks, illuminating dust motes that danced above cardboard boxes. She sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor, wrapping her favorite camera lens in bubble wrap with the careful attention of someone handling a sacred object. Around her, her entire life had been reduced to labeled containers: equipment, prints, clothes, books. The apartment that had been her sanctuary for 3 years now looked like a crime scene of poor decisions. "You don't have to go through with this." Maya Chen stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee, her expression somewhere between sympathy and exasperation. "We could find another way. I could loan you—" "No." Ava's voice was firm, though her hands trembled slightly as she sealed the box. "I made the bet. I lost. I'm not going to weasel out of it because it turned out worse than I expected." Maya set the coffees down and settled onto the floor beside her best friend. They'd known each other since college, had survived late-night portfolio reviews, and lean months where ramen constituted gourmet dining. Maya had watched Ava build her freelance photography career from nothing, celebrated every gallery showing, every client win, every step toward the life Ava had always envisioned. "Remind me again how we got here?" Maya asked, though she knew the story. Sometimes you needed to hear your own mistakes out loud to believe them. Ava let out a bitter laugh. "Because I'm an idiot who can't resist a challenge." It had started 3 weeks ago at the Copper Still, their favorite bar in the Arts District. Ava had been celebrating landing a commission for a local magazine. Decent money, creative control, exactly the kind of work she'd been chasing. She'd been on her 3rd Moscow Mule when Derek Chen, Maya's older brother and a corporate lawyer with a gambling problem disguised as competitive spirit, had issued his challenge. "I bet you couldn't last 30 days in a normal job," Derek had said, swirling his whiskey. "You're too used to your freedom, your artistic temperament, your complete lack of structure. Put you in a regular 9-to-5 with actual responsibilities to other people, and you'd crack in a week." Ava should have laughed it off, should have recognized the trap. But the alcohol in her own stubborn pride had other ideas. "I could handle anything you throw at me," she'd shot back. "I've worked 60-hour weeks on assignment. I've dealt with bridezillas and corporate clients who think creative vision means doing exactly what they say. Don't confuse freedom with incompetence." Derek had smiled then, the expression of a shark scenting blood. "Okay, 30 days. I choose the job. You do it without quitting. If you make it, I'll pay you $10,000. If you don't, you pay me whatever's in your savings account." "Deal." She'd shaken his hand before Maya could intervene. The next morning, hungover and vaguely uneasy, Ava had tried to remember the exact terms. When Derek's email arrived with the contract, her stomach had dropped through the floor. Position: live-in caregiver and household assistant. Duration: 30 days, no days off. Employer: Noah Brooks. Responsibilities: child care for Emma Brooks, age 8, household management, meal preparation, general support. Compensation: room and board provided by employer plus $500 stipend terms. Failure to complete full 30 days results in forfeiture of savings account balance, $8,247.16, to Derek Chen Live-In. Not just a job she could grit her teeth through during business hours and escape at night. 30 days embedded in someone else's life, responsible for a child, living in a stranger's home. And the financial stakes? Derek had somehow discovered her exact account balance. If she backed out or quit, she'd be wiped out. "I called him, Maya said now, pulling Ava back to the present. Told him to cancel it, that it was predatory and cruel. What did he say? That you're an adult who made a legally binding agreement, and that maybe this would teach you that actions have consequences. Maya's voice dripped with disgust. Sometimes I hate that we're related. Ava managed a weak smile. It's not his fault I was dumb enough to take the bet. It absolutely is his fault for making it in the first place. Maya picked up one of Ava's cameras, a vintage Pentax she'd restored herself. You know what kills me? You're one of the most responsible people I know. You built a career from scratch. You meet every deadline. You deliver incredible work. You've never flaked on a friend or a client. But because you don't clock in at an office, people like Derek think you're just playing at life. The words hit harder than Maya probably intended. Ava had spent years defending her choices to family members who didn't understand why she'd turned down stable jobs to chase uncertain artistic dreams. Her parents had eventually come around, proud of her gallery showings, even if they didn't quite grasp what she did day to day. But there was always an undercurrent of concern. When are you going to get serious? When are you going to find something stable? Tell me about them, Maya said. The family you're moving in with. Ava pulled up the brief dossier Derek had provided. Noah Brooks, 34, works in software development. Widower. His wife died 2 years ago, car accident. Daughter Emma is 8, second grade. They live in Westfield Heights. Westfield Heights. Not the trendy downtown neighborhood where Ava had built her life, but a suburban area of family homes and good school districts. The kind of place where people had garages and knew their neighbors and probably thought a wild Friday night meant watching a movie after the kids' bedtime. What else? That's it. Derek said Mr. Brooks is expecting me, that the arrangement has been explained to him, and that I'm to report this evening before 6. Maya frowned. How did Derek even set this up? Does he know this Noah person? Client, apparently. Derek handled his wife's estate or something legal after she died. I guess when Derek mentioned needing to find someone for his bet, Mr. Brooks said he could use the help. Ava's voice was flat. Lucky me. Ava, Maya reached out, squeezing her friend's hand. You don't have to do this. We'll figure something else out. I have savings. I'm not taking your money. Ava's voice was gentle but absolute. You're saving for your gallery. You've been working toward that for 3 years. I'm not derailing your dream because I made a stupid bet. But, May, I appreciate it more than you know, but this is on me. Ava stood surveying the boxes. Besides, it's 30 days. I've spent longer than that on assignment in worse conditions. I once slept in a tent for 6 weeks documenting wildlife migration. I can handle a suburban house and 1 kid. Even as she said it, something cold twisted in her stomach. This wasn't about physical hardship or uncomfortable conditions. This was about inserting herself into the intimate space of a grieving family, becoming part of their daily life, responsible for a child who'd lost her mother. It felt invasive and wrong, but the contract was signed and the clock was ticking. By 5 o'clock, Ava's Subaru was packed. She'd kept 1 camera, her laptop, clothes, toiletries, and a few books. Everything else was in Maya's garage. The apartment keys had been returned to her landlord with a promise she'd reclaim the space in 30 days. If she failed, she'd be returning broke and humiliated, starting over from nothing. The drive to Westfield Heights took 25 minutes, the urban landscape gradually giving way to tree-lined streets and houses with front porches. Ava's GPS guided her to a tidy 2-story colonial with blue-gray siding and white trim. A basketball hoop stood over the garage door. Flower beds framed the front walk, though they looked neglected, weeds creeping between the plants. Ava sat in her car for a moment, engine off, staring at the house. A light glowed in one upstairs window. This was someone's home, their private sanctuary, and she was about to invade it because of a drunken bet. She grabbed her bags and approached the front door. Before she could knock, it opened. The man standing in the doorway matched his photo, but somehow looked more substantial in person. Noah Brooks was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair that needed a trim and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore jeans and a faded university t-shirt, his feet bare. He looked tired, not just end-of-day tired, but bone-deep exhaustion that lived in his posture and the shadows under his eyes. Ms. Reynolds. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, carefully neutral. Mr. Brooks, please, call me Ava. He nodded, but didn't offer his own first name. Come in. The interior was clean but impersonal, like a staged home waiting for real occupants. The furniture was nice, but arranged with mathematical precision rather than comfort. Family photos lined the mantel and walls, but they all seemed to stop at the same point in time. A beautiful woman with warm eyes and an easy smile, frozen in happiness that would never update. "I'll show you to your room." Noah moved toward the stairs with the efficiency of someone completing a task. Ava followed, hyper-aware of being a stranger in this space. The stairs were carpeted in soft beige. At the top, Noah turned left down a hallway, past a closed door, Emma's room, Ava guessed, to a room at the end. "Guest room, bathroom is across the hall. Towels in the cabinet." He set her bags inside the doorway. "Emma's bedtime is 8:30 on school nights, 9 on weekends. She gets up at 7. I work from home most days, office in the basement. I'll email you her schedule, dietary restrictions, emergency contacts." The information came in rapid-fire efficiency, as if emotion could be kept at bay through sheer procedural competence. "Mr. Brooks, there are house rules on the kitchen counter. Please read them tonight." He was already backing toward the hallway. "I need to finish some work. Emma's in her room. I'd introduce you, but she doesn't do well with new people." He was gone before Ava could respond, his footsteps retreating down the stairs. A door closed somewhere below, the basement office, presumably. Ava stood in the guest room, which was pleasant and utterly impersonal. Pale yellow walls, white furniture, a landscape painting of somewhere generic. She sat on the bed, springs creaking, and let out a long breath. 30 days. She could do this. After unpacking her essentials, Ava ventured downstairs. The kitchen was a study in organized neglect, everything clean and in its place, but nothing that suggested actual cooking happened here. The refrigerator held mostly takeout containers and basic staples. The pantry was stocked with pasta, canned goods, and an alarming amount of cereal. The house rules Noah mentioned were typed and laminated on the counter. House Rules 1. Emma's schedule is paramount. See attached calendar. 2. No visitors without prior approval. 3. No changes to household systems without discussion. 4. Emma's mother's belongings are not to be moved or touched. 5. Respect privacy and boundaries. 6. Emergency contacts and medical information in blue folder by phone. The formality felt both understandable and deeply sad. This was a man trying to maintain control of a life that had spun into chaos. A sound from upstairs, soft but distinct. Music, maybe? Ava climbed the stairs quietly, following the sound to Emma's door. Not music. Humming. A child's voice, tuneless and thin. Ava knocked gently. The humming stopped. "Emma? My name is Ava. I'm going to be staying here for a little while to help out." Silence. "I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to say hi. If you need anything, I'm right down the hall." More silence. Then, so quietly, Ava almost missed it. "Okay." It wasn't much, but it was acknowledgement. Ava returned to her room, feeling the weight of 30 days stretching ahead like an impossible distance. The first week blurred together in a rhythm of careful avoidance. Noah left detailed instructions each morning, typed, printed, left on the kitchen counter. Emma's schedule was plotted in 15-minute increments. 7 o'clock wake-up, breakfast by 7:30, options listed, school drop-off at 8:15, pick-up at 3, snack by 3:30, homework before dinner, bath at 7:45, bed by 8:30. Ava followed the schedule with the dedication of someone defusing a bomb. Any deviation felt like failure. Emma was a ghost of a child. She spoke in whispers when she spoke at all, her responses limited to yes, no, and I don't know. She was small for 8, with her father's dark hair and eyes that seemed too old for her face. She moved through the house like she was trying not to take up space, as if existence itself required apology. At school pickup on the 3rd day, Ava watched other kids burst from the building in explosions of energy, chattering about their days, dragging parents toward the playground for extra minutes of play. Emma emerged alone, walking with careful steps, her backpack precisely centered on her shoulders. "How was school?" Ava asked as Emma climbed into the car. "Fine." "What did you do in class today?" stuff? Did anything interesting happen? No. By the fourth day, Ava stopped asking. They drove in silence, Emma staring out the window at a world that seemed to hold no interest. Noah was equally elusive. He emerged from his basement office only for necessary interactions, his conversations with Ava limited to logistics. She learned his coffee preferences by observation. Black, no sugar, consumed in large quantities throughout the day. He ate standing up at the counter, seemed to survive on sandwiches and whatever she prepared for Emma, and retreated back to work as quickly as possible. The house itself was the most communicative presence. Ava learned its creaks and sighs, which floorboards to avoid when moving quietly, how the light shifted through the windows as the day progressed. She photographed it instinctively at first, the way afternoon sun illuminated dust motes in the living room, the shadows cast by the stair railings, before remembering this wasn't her home to document. But her camera stayed accessible. Observation was reflexive, even when she couldn't capture images. On the 8th day, Ava decided breakfast monotony was unacceptable. Emma had eaten the same cereal every morning for a week. While the schedule allowed for approved breakfast options, nowhere did it forbid expansion of that list. She woke early and made pancakes, real ones, from scratch, with fresh berries she'd bought during grocery shopping. The kitchen filled with the smell of butter and vanilla. When Emma appeared at 7, drawn by the unusual aroma, her eyes widened. "What's that?" "Pancakes. You like pancakes?" Emma nodded slowly, as if admitting to preferences might be dangerous. "Good. Sit down." They ate together in silence, but Ava noticed Emma finished every bite and looked disappointed when the plate was empty. It wasn't conversation, but it was something. That afternoon, during the prescribed homework hour, Ava watched Emma struggle with math problems at the kitchen table. The girl would write an answer, erase it, write it again, erase harder. Her shoulders were up around her ears, tension radiating from her small frame. "You want help?" Ava asked. "I'm supposed to do it myself." "Sure, but everybody needs help sometimes. What's the problem?" Emma slid the worksheet across the table. 3rd grade multiplication. She'd gotten the first few right, but now she was spiraling, second-guessing herself into paralysis. Ava pulled her chair closer. "Okay, so this one is 7 times 6. How do you usually figure these out?" "I don't know." Emma's voice was thick with frustration. "Do you know your 7 times table?" A head shake. "That's okay. Let's think about it differently. If you have 7 groups of 6 cookies, how many cookies total?" They worked through it together, Ava breaking down the problems into smaller pieces, showing different ways to arrive at the same answer. Gradually, Emma's shoulders lowered. She started attempting problems without erasing immediately. When Noah emerged for his evening check-in, Emma showed him her completed homework with something that almost resembled pride. "All done?" he asked. "Ava helped me with the hard ones." His eyes flicked to Ava, unreadable. "That's good. Go wash up for dinner." After Emma left, Noah stayed in the kitchen doorway. "The schedule says homework is independent work." She was struggling. "I just explained the concepts differently. She needs to learn to work through challenges on her own." Ava bit back her first response, taking a breath. "She's 8. Sometimes kids need guidance to build confidence before independence makes sense." They stared at each other for a moment, the air tight with unspoken tension. Then Noah nodded once and disappeared back to his office. It was the longest conversation they'd had. On day 12, everything changed. Ava was in the kitchen preparing lunch when she heard the crash from the living room. Not a small accident, a significant impact followed by the unmistakable sound of something shattering. She ran. Emma stood frozen in the center of the room, surrounded by fragments of blue and white porcelain. A decorative vase, one that had sat on the mantel among the family photos, lay destroyed on the hardwood floor. The girl's face was white, her eyes huge. She stared at the wreckage like someone watching their own execution. "Emma, are you hurt?" Ava scanned for blood, for any sign of injury. Emma shook her head mutely. "What happened?" Emma's voice cracked. "I was trying to look at the picture behind it, and I knocked it, and I tried to catch it, but..." She started to cry, huge gulping sobs that shook her whole body. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. Hey, it's okay." Ava moved carefully around the broken pieces. It's not okay. Emma's voice rose to a wail. It was Mommy's favorite, and now it's ruined, and Daddy's going to be so mad, and everything is broken, and it's all my fault. She was spiraling into panic, her breathing rapid and shallow. Ava had seen enough panic attacks to recognize the signs. Emma, look at me. She kept her voice calm, authoritative. Look at my eyes. Emma's gaze locked onto hers, tears streaming down her face. We're going to breathe together, okay? In through your nose, count to 4. Ava demonstrated. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. It took several minutes, but gradually Emma's breathing steadied. The sobs quieted to hiccups. Better? Ava asked. A small nod. Okay. Now, you're going to go sit on the couch while I clean this up. Don't move. There's glass everywhere, and I don't want you getting hurt. But go. Sit. I've got this. Emma obeyed, perching on the edge of the couch like a bird ready for flight. Ava found a broom and dustpan, carefully collecting the larger pieces before vacuuming the smaller fragments. The vase was beyond repair, dozens of pieces, some ground to powder. When she finished, Ava sat beside Emma on the couch. The girl was still trembling. Want to tell me what really happened? Ava asked gently. Emma's voice was barely audible. There's a picture of Mommy on the mantel. It's behind the vase, so I can't see it very well from the couch. I just wanted to look at her face. I haven't looked at it in a long time because Daddy gets sad when I look at the pictures. But I wanted to remember what she looked like when she smiled that way, so I climbed up to move the vase and it slipped. Ava's heart cracked. Emma, there's nothing wrong with wanting to see your mom's pictures. Daddy says we should focus on moving forward, not looking back. Sometimes looking back helps us move forward. Ava paused, choosing her words carefully. You must miss her very much. The floodgates opened. Emma began to cry again, but differently. Not panic, but grief, raw and bottomless. She curled into herself, and Ava did the only thing that made sense. She pulled the child into her arms and held her while she sobbed. I miss her so much, Emma gasped between cries. I miss her all the time, and I'm not supposed to talk about it because it makes Daddy sad, but I can't stop missing her, and sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like, and that scares me, and I broke her favorite vase, and now there's nothing left. Shh, sweetheart. You didn't break your mom. You broke a vase. That's not the same thing. But it was special to her. Maybe. But you know what would have been more special to her? You. You're what mattered, not a vase. Emma clung tighter. Ava held her, rocking slightly, letting the grief pour out. How long had this child been holding this inside? How many days of perfect behavior, careful silence, trying not to be a burden on her father's visible pain? They stayed that way until Emma's tears subsided into exhaustion. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and swollen. What's your daddy gonna say when he finds out? Emma whispered. Before Ava could answer, a voice from the doorway. Finds out what? They both turned. Noah stood at the entrance to the living room, his laptop under his arm, taking in the scene. His daughter's tear-stained face, Ava's protective posture, and the conspicuous empty space on the mantel. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Where's the vase? Emma started crying again. Ava stood, positioning herself slightly between them. There was an accident. The vase fell and broke. Emma's not hurt, which is what matters. Noah's jaw tightened. That vase was important, I know. I'm sorry it broke, but Emma's okay, and that's what counts. He looked at his daughter, really looked at her, seeming to see the depth of her distress for the first time. Something in his rigid posture softened incrementally. Emma, go to your room, please. Daddy, I'm so sorry. Your room, now. Emma fled, her footsteps pounding up the stairs. A door slammed. Noah turned to Ava, his face carefully blank. Where are the pieces? In the trash, it shattered completely. He walked to the mantel, staring at the empty space where the vase had been. His hand reached out, touching the spot, then dropped. My wife bought that on our honeymoon in Greece. His voice was distant. She said it was the exact color of the Aegean Sea. I'm sorry it's gone. Things break. He said it like he was trying to convince himself. Things can't last forever. They stood in silence. Ava wanted to say something about Emma, about her grief and isolation, but this didn't feel like the moment. Noah exhaled slowly. I should talk to her. Maybe give her a few minutes. She's pretty shaken up. She should be more careful. She's 8, and she was trying to see a picture of her mother. Cut her some slack. His eyes snapped to hers, defensive. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. This isn't... He stopped, recalibrated. Emma has therapist appointments on Thursdays. It's in the schedule. Make sure she goes. He turned and walked toward the basement stairs, dismissing both the conversation and his daughter's crisis in one move. Ava watched him go, frustration rising hot in her chest. But she pushed it down. She was hired help, temporary, here on a bet. Getting involved in this family's emotional dynamics wasn't part of the deal. Except Emma's face, when she'd broken down, admitting she couldn't remember her mother's voice. That wasn't something Ava could just schedule around. She climbed the stairs to Emma's room and knocked softly. Emma? Can I come in? A muffled sound that might have been a scent. Ava opened the door. Emma's room was like the rest of the house. Clean, organized, impersonal. The bed was made with hospital corners. Toys were arranged on shelves with mathematical precision. Nothing was out of place, which somehow made it the saddest child's room Ava had ever seen. Emma sat on her bed, hugging a pillow to her chest. Ava sat on the edge of the bed. Your dad's not mad at you. Yes, he is. He's sad about the vase. That's different from being mad at you. It's the same. Emma's voice was flat with conviction. Everything makes him sad now. If I'm loud, if I'm messy, if I talk about mommy, if I cry, everything I do is wrong. I don't think that's true. You don't know. Emma looked at her with those two old eyes. You're only here for a month. Then you'll leave like everybody else. The words stung because they were accurate. Ava was temporary help, hired because of a bet, counting down days until she could return to her real life. Getting attached would be foolish for everyone involved, but looking at this child, this grieving, isolated little girl trying so hard to be invisible, Ava couldn't maintain that distance. You're right, she said. I'm only here for a month. But while I'm here, you can talk to me about your mom, about school, about anything, okay? Emma studied her face, searching for sincerity. Okay? And Emma, your mom loved you more than any vase. I promise you that. A tiny, fragile smile. Okay. That night, Ava lay in her guest bed, staring at the ceiling and counting days. 18 left, just over 2 weeks. She could maintain the schedule, keep the household running, stay emotionally neutral. But Emma's voice echoed in her head. I can't remember what she sounded like. And Noah's. Things can't last forever. This wasn't a family. It was 3 people existing in the same space, each isolated in their own grief, going through motions but not living. Ava had come here because of a stupid bet, because of pride and consequences. But maybe, just maybe, there was a reason beyond her own mistakes that had landed her in this house. Maybe 30 days was exactly how long it took to start breaking down walls people had spent 2 years building. Maybe losing a bet was the first step toward winning something that actually mattered. Or maybe she was just tired and emotionally compromised and reading too much into a temporary arrangement. Either way, tomorrow she'd make Emma's favorite pancakes again. It wasn't much, but it was something. The pancakes became a ritual. Every morning, Ava rose before the household stirred and filled the kitchen with the scent of something made with care. Sometimes blueberry, sometimes chocolate chip. Once a disastrous attempt at shaped pancakes that Emma had giggled at. An actual giggle, brief but real. Noah never commented on the breakfast upgrade, but Ava noticed his coffee consumption decreased slightly, replaced by actual food consumed at the table rather than standing at the counter. Small victories. Thursday arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Emma's therapy appointment was at 4, which meant early pickup from school and a drive across town to Dr. Patricia Morrison's office. Ava had the address, the insurance card, and strict instructions that she was to wait in the reception area, not accompany Emma into sessions. The therapist's office occupied the second floor of a converted Victorian house. The waiting room decorated in soothing blues and greens with abstract art, that probably cost more than Ava's car. She settled into an uncomfortable modern chair with a magazine she had no intention of reading, watching Emma disappear behind a door marked with Dr. Morrison's nameplate. 45 minutes felt like hours. Ava checked her phone compulsively, responded to a few texts from Maya asking how prison was treating her, and tried not to think about the photo assignment she'd turned down last week because she couldn't leave the house. When the door finally opened, Emma emerged looking exhausted. Dr. Morrison appeared behind her, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a loose bun. "Emma did wonderful work today." The therapist's smile was genuine. "Same time next week?" Emma nodded, already heading for the exit. "Ms. Reynolds?" "Doctor." Morrison's voice stopped Ava as she stood to leave. "Could I speak with you for just a moment?" Ava glanced at Emma, who had paused by the door. "Can you wait right there where I can see you?" Another nod. Emma sat in one of the waiting room chairs, pulling out a book from her backpack. Dr. Morrison gestured Ava to the side, lowering her voice. "I wanted to check in. You're the new caregiver, correct?" "Yes. Just for the month." "I see. And how is Emma doing at home? I know transitions can be difficult for her." Ava considered her answer carefully. "She's very quiet, very careful, like she's trying not to take up space." "That's consistent with what I'm seeing. The grief is still very present, compounded by anxiety about expressing it." Dr. Morrison paused, seeming to choose her words. "Has she talked to you about her mother?" "Once, when she broke a vase. She said she can't remember her mother's voice." The therapist's expression shifted to concern. "I suspected as much. As memory fading is common and terrifying for children who've lost a parent, they need permission to remember, to grieve openly. Has Mr. Brooks been receptive to these conversations?" "I don't think they have these conversations." "That's what I was afraid of." Dr. Morrison sighed. "Grief is complicated. Sometimes parents think protecting children from pain means avoiding the source of it entirely. But Emma needs to process her loss, not bury it. I'm just the caregiver. I'm not sure it's my place to—" "You're the adult spending the most time with her right now. That makes it very much your place." The therapist's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not asking you to be her therapist, but if she wants to talk about her mother, let her. Show her that missing someone isn't wrong." The rain started as they drove home, fat drops splattering the windshield. Emma stared out her window, silent as always, but something about her posture seemed heavier than usual. "You okay?" Ava asked. "Doctor, Morrison asked me to draw a picture of a happy memory." Emma's voice was small. "That sounds nice. What did you draw?" "I couldn't remember one. Not clearly enough to draw. I tried to remember the beach house we went to, but I couldn't remember if Mommy's swimsuit was blue or green. I couldn't remember which side her hair was on. Everything's blurry." Ava's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Sometimes memories get fuzzy. That doesn't mean they weren't real or important. But if I can't remember them, it's like they never happened. It's like she's disappearing twice." The raw honesty of it punched straight through Ava's carefully maintained emotional distance. She pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and turned to face Emma. "Look at me." She waited until Emma's eyes met hers. "Your mom isn't disappearing. She's part of you, in the way you think, the things you like, the person you're becoming. Memory isn't the only way people stay with us." "But I want to remember." "Then we'll help you remember. Do you have videos, photos?" "Daddy put them away. He said looking at them made it harder." "Of course he did." Ava took a deep breath, knowing she was about to cross a line that might get her fired. "What if we looked at some together? Just you and me?" Emma's eyes widened. "Daddy wouldn't like that." "Your daddy is trying to protect you from being sad. But sometimes being sad is okay. Sometimes we need to be sad to get through to the other side." "You won't tell him?" The question twisted something in Ava's chest. A child asking an adult to keep secrets from her father. It should have been a red flag, a hard no. But this wasn't about deception. This was about a little girl being denied access to her own mother's memory. "I think your dad should know. But if you're worried, we can talk to him together. Would that be better?" Emma considered this, then shook her head. "Not yet. Can we look at pictures first, so I can remember her face clearly enough to tell him about it?" It was a reasonable request wrapped in a child's logic. Ava knew she should refuse, should insist on transparency with Noah, but Emma's desperate need to remember her mother outweighed protocol. Okay, but Emma, if your dad asks us directly, we don't lie. Deal? Deal. They shook on it, two conspirators against grief. That evening, after Noah had retreated to his office and Emma was supposedly doing homework, Ava knocked softly on the girl's bedroom door. Emma opened it immediately, her face lit with an expression Ava hadn't seen before, anticipation mixed with nervousness. "Did you find them?" Emma whispered. "Tell me where to look." Emma led her to the hall closet, pointing to the top shelf where several boxes were stacked. Ava pulled down the one Emma indicated, labeled in neat handwriting. "Sarah, photos." They carried it to Emma's room like contraband. Inside were albums, loose photos, and a small wooden box. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the first album. "That's Mommy and Daddy's wedding." She pointed to a photo of a younger Noah in a tux, beaming at a stunning woman in a simple white dress. Sarah Brooks had been beautiful. Warm brown eyes, auburn hair catching sunlight, a smile that looked incapable of fakeness. They went through the album slowly. Sarah pregnant, glowing, and laughing. Sarah holding a newborn Emma, exhausted and radiant. Sarah and Emma at various ages, first birthday, first day of school, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings, a life documented in careful detail. Her voice was soft, Emma said suddenly, touching a photo of Sarah reading to her. Not quiet, but gentle. Like when you're telling a secret that's good news. That's a beautiful way to describe it. And she smelled like vanilla and something else. Something flowery. I can't remember the name. Lavender, maybe? No, sweeter. Jasmine? Emma's face brightened. Yes, jasmine. She had this lotion she used every night. She'd put it on my hands too before bed and tell me stories. The memories were surfacing, unlocked by the photographs. Emma talked for over an hour, sharing fragments of her mother, the way Sarah sang off key in the car, her terrible attempts at French braiding, how she'd make up silly voices for Emma's stuffed animals, her insistence on homemade birthday cakes even though she wasn't a great baker. She tried to make me a unicorn cake once, Emma said, giggling at the memory. But it looked more like a lumpy horse with a carrot on its head. We laughed so hard we cried. Then we ate it anyway, and it was delicious, even though it was ugly. Ava felt her own eyes sting. This was what Emma needed. Not to forget, but to remember the fullness of who her mother had been. Not a saint frozen in grief, but a real woman who burned cakes and sang badly and loved her daughter fiercely. They were so absorbed in the photos that neither heard the footsteps on the stairs. The door opened without warning. Noah stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. His eyes went from the photo album spread across Emma's bed to his daughter's tear-stained but animated face to Ava's guilty expression. "What's going on here?" Emma's joy evaporated instantly. She scrambled to close the albums, her panic returning in a rush. I'm sorry. We were just—" Emma wanted to see pictures of her mother, Ava said, keeping her voice steady even as her heart hammered. "We were looking through the albums together." Noah's jaw clenched. "Those are supposed to stay put away." "Why?" The question escaped before Ava could stop it. "Excuse me? Why are they put away? Why can't Emma look at pictures of her own mother?" "Emma, go brush your teeth. Now!" Noah's voice allowed no argument. Emma fled, leaving Ava alone with Noah's barely contained fury. He stepped into the room, closing the door with controlled precision. When he spoke, his voice was low and tight. "You had no right to do this. She has every right to remember her mother. You've been here 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You don't get to make decisions about my daughter's emotional well-being. Someone needs to because you're clearly not." The words were harsh, harsher than Ava intended, but she didn't take them back. Noah's face flushed. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then enlighten me. Explain why your daughter is so terrified of missing her mother that she's forgetting her voice. Explain why she has to sneak into closets to see photos like they're contraband. Explain why a child is apologizing for grieving. I'm trying to help her move forward. You're teaching her that love ends in pain that has to be hidden away. That's not moving forward. That's just running." The silence that followed was dangerous. Noah stared at her with an expression somewhere between rage and something that looked like breaking. You don't know anything about losing someone. His voice was rough. You're right, I don't. But I know what it looks like when someone's drowning and your daughter is drowning. Get out. Noah, it's Mr. Brooks. And I said get out. Ava left, her hand shaking. She heard the murmur of Noah's voice in Emma's room, too low to make out words, then his heavy footsteps descending to the basement. A door slammed hard enough to rattle the house. She'd crossed the line, maybe fatally. The next morning arrived tense and silent. Ava made pancakes out of habit, but Emma barely touched hers, shooting nervous glances at her father. Noah ignored both of them, drinking his coffee and staring at his laptop with aggressive focus. When it was time to leave for school, Emma grabbed her backpack and headed for the door without her usual goodbye to her father. Noah didn't look up. The drive to school was quiet, except for Emma's whispered, "Is Daddy mad at you?" "A little. It's okay." "Because of the pictures?" "Because I spoke to him in a way that wasn't very respectful. I should have been more careful with my words." "But you were right." Emma's voice was small but certain. "About me drowning." Ava's throat tightened. Sometimes being right doesn't matter if you say it wrong. After drop-off, Ava returned to a silent house. She cleaned the kitchen, started laundry, tried to focus on maintaining the household schedule. Around 10, her phone buzzed with an email from Noah. The subject line, "Household discussion required." Her stomach dropped. This was it. Termination, failure, forfeiture of her savings. She'd made it 15 days halfway through and blown it by interfering where she didn't belong. The email was brief. "My office, 10:30. Ava descended the basement stairs at exactly 10:30, each step feeling like a march to execution. Noah's office was surprisingly lived in compared to the rest of the house. Papers scattered across the desk, multiple monitors, a whiteboard covered in diagrams and code snippets. He sat behind his desk, the picture of professional composure. "Close the door and sit down." Ava obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair across from him. Noah folded his hands on the desk. "I've been up most of the night thinking about what you said." "I'm sorry for overstepping. Let me finish." His voice was controlled, but not unkind. "You were out of line. You've been here 2 weeks, and you made a significant decision about my daughter's emotional care without consulting me. I know, I should have talked to you first." "Yes, you should have." He paused, his composure cracking slightly. "You were also right." Ava blinked. "What?" "Emma's therapist called me this morning. She said Emma had a breakthrough yesterday, that she talked more in that session than she had in months. She asked what had changed." Noah's eyes met hers. "I told her about the photographs." "What did she say?" "That I've been handling Emma's grief by managing my own. That by protecting her from sadness, I've been teaching her that missing her mother is wrong." His voice roughened. "That I've been so focused on not drowning myself that I didn't notice my daughter was going under." The honesty in his admission was devastating. Ava could see the effort it cost him, this man who controlled everything he could reach. "I don't know how to do this," Noah continued. "I don't know how to let her grieve without falling apart myself. Every time she cries for Sarah, I feel like I'm failing both of them. Like if I were enough, she wouldn't need to miss her mother so much. That's not how it works. I know that intellectually, but knowing something and feeling it are different things." He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture betraying his exhaustion. Sarah was the emotional center of this family. She knew how to talk about feelings, how to make Emma feel safe with big emotions. "I'm a software developer who fixes problems with logic. I don't have those tools." "So you'll learn them." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple. Not easy, but simple." Ava leaned forward. "Emma doesn't need you to be her mother. She needs you to be her father, present, honest, willing to be sad with her instead of for her." Noah was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Morrison suggested family therapy, sessions with both of us. "That sounds like a good idea." She also said that having you here has been stabilizing for Emma, that you've created space for her to express things she's been holding back. He met Ava's eyes. "I'm asking you to stay, not just to fulfill the bet, but because Emma needs someone who isn't drowning in their own grief to help her navigate hers." The request caught Ava off guard. She'd expected termination, not this vulnerable plea for help. I'm only here for another 2 weeks. I know, but maybe 2 weeks of doing this right is better than 2 years of doing it wrong. Noah's expression was open in a way she hadn't seen before. I can't pay you more than what was agreed, but I can promise to actually listen when you think I'm making mistakes. And I can try to be less of an asshole about you making pancakes. Despite everything, Ava smiled. The pancakes are non-negotiable. I'm learning that. The tension in the room shifted, not gone, but transformed into something workable. They weren't friends, weren't family, but maybe they were becoming something like allies. I'll stay, Ava said. But I need you to actually talk to Emma. Not at her, not around her, with her. I don't know how to start. Start with I miss her too. Everything else will follow. That evening, Ava prepared dinner. Real dinner, not takeout, with vegetables and actual seasoning. When Noah emerged from his office at 6 instead of 8, Emma looked shocked. You're eating with us? The girl asked. If that's okay with you. Emma nodded vigorously. They sat together at the dining table, an arrangement that felt both normal and unprecedented. For several minutes, the only sound was silverware on plates. Then Noah cleared his throat. Emma, I need to apologize to you. Emma's fork froze halfway to her mouth. For what? For making you think that missing your mom was something to hide. For putting away all her pictures like they were painful instead of precious. For not talking about her with you. His voice was steady, but clearly took effort. I've been trying so hard not to be sad that I forgot you need permission to be sad too. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I thought you wanted to forget her. Never. God, Emma, never. Noah's composure cracked. I could never forget your mother. She was the best part of my life. You're the best part of my life. And she's part of you, which means she's still here in all the ways that matter. Then why did you hide the pictures? Because looking at them hurt. Because I didn't know how to miss her and be strong for you at the same time. He reached across the table, taking his daughter's small hand in his larger one. But Ava helped me understand that I don't have to choose. We can miss her together. We can be sad together. And we can remember her together. Emma started crying in earnest, but she was smiling too. Can we put her pictures back out? We can do better than that. We can look through them together, and you can tell me all the stories you remember, and I'll tell you the ones you were too little to know. Deal? Deal. Ava excused herself quietly, giving them space for a conversation 2 years overdue. She cleaned the kitchen with unnecessary thoroughness, blinking back her own tears. Through the dining room door, she could hear their voices, hesitant at first, then flowing more freely. Emma's laughter, bright and unrestrained. Noah's deeper rumble, rusty from disuse but genuine. Later, after Emma was in bed, Noah found Ava in the kitchen finishing the last of the dishes. Thank you, he said simply. I didn't do anything. You did everything. You saw what I couldn't see. You cared when you had every reason not to. He leaned against the counter. Can I ask you something personal? I guess. Why are you really here? Derek Chen is my lawyer, and he mentioned the bet, but that doesn't explain why you're actually trying instead of just running out the clock. Ava dried her hands on a towel, considering how honest to be. At first, I was just trying to get through 30 days without losing my savings. But then I met Emma, and I saw what happens when grief doesn't have anywhere to go. My mom died when I was in college. Cancer, and for a long time after, I threw myself into work, into staying busy, into anything that meant I didn't have to feel it. It took years before I could look at her photos without falling apart. How did you get through it? I started documenting other people's stories, photographing moments of joy and pain and everything between. It helped me remember that life continues, that love continues, even after loss. She met his eyes. Emma reminded me that running from grief doesn't make it smaller, it just makes it heavier. Noah nodded slowly. Sarah would have liked you. She always said I needed someone to call me on my bullshit. I suspect I would have liked her too. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the house settling around them. Somewhere upstairs, Emma was sleeping peacefully for perhaps the first time in months. It wasn't a solution, wasn't a happy ending, but it was a beginning. Ava? Noah's voice was quiet. When the 30 days are up, would you consider staying longer? Not as hired help, but as, I don't know what to call it, someone who's part of Emma's life? The question hung in the air between them. Ava thought about her apartment in storage, her photography career on hold, the freedom she'd been so desperate to reclaim. Then she thought about Emma's giggle over misshapen pancakes, her stories about her mother's terrible cake decorating, the light coming back into her eyes. "Ask me in 2 weeks," she said finally. "Let's get through the bet first." Fair enough. But as Ava climbed the stairs to her guest room that night, she already knew what her answer would be. She'd lost the bet the moment she'd decided Emma's well-being mattered more than her own pride. And somehow, that felt exactly like winning. The shift in the household happened gradually, like ice thawing after a long winter. Sarah's photographs reappeared on the mantel and walls, no longer hidden like shameful secrets, but displayed with the reverence they deserved. Emma would pause in front of them sometimes, touching the frames gently, her face thoughtful rather than devastated. The difference was profound. Noah started emerging from his office more frequently, joining them for meals without being summoned, asking about Emma's day with genuine curiosity rather than perfunctory obligation. The conversations were still sometimes awkward, his emotional vocabulary limited by years of avoidance, but he was trying. That counted for something. On day 19, Ava woke to find Emma standing beside her bed, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. "Emma? What's wrong? What time is it?" "It's 6. I'm sorry for waking you, but I had an idea." Emma's eyes were bright with excitement. Can we make Mommy's chocolate chip cookies? The recipe is in her cookbook. Daddy always says they were the best cookies in the world, but we haven't made them since she died." Ava sat up, pushing hair out of her face. "Does your dad know you're up?" "Not yet. I wanted to ask you first." "Okay. Let me get dressed and we'll see if we can find that cookbook." 20 minutes later, they were in the kitchen, flour dusting the counters and the recipe card propped against the sugar canister. Sarah's handwriting was looped and cheerful, with notes scribbled in the margins. "Extra vanilla makes them better. And don't overbake. 10 minutes max." Emma read the ingredients aloud while Ava gathered supplies. The girl's enthusiasm was infectious, her usual carefulness replaced by genuine joy. She measured flour with concentrated precision, cracking eggs with only minimal shell casualties, stirring the dough with both hands gripping the wooden spoon. "Mommy used to let me eat the dough even though Daddy said it wasn't safe because of raw eggs," Emma confided, stealing a fingerful and grinning conspirationally. "I won't tell if you won't." They were sliding the first tray into the oven when Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway, drawn by the scent of butter and sugar. He was still in pajama pants and a faded t-shirt, his hair standing up in several directions. "What's going on?" His voice was rough with sleep. Emma spun around, her expression suddenly nervous. "We're making Mommy's cookies. Is that okay?" Ava watched emotions flicker across Noah's face. Surprise, pain, something that might have been grief or might have been gratitude. He crossed the kitchen and pulled Emma into a hug. "More than okay, sweetheart. Your mom would love that you remembered. Will you help us make the next batch?" He hesitated only a moment. "Yeah, I'd like that." They spent the next hour in the kitchen together, the three of them working in a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Noah proved unexpectedly competent at portioning dough, his software developer's precision translating well to uniform cookie sizes. Emma narrated memories between batches, how Sarah would always burn the first tray because she got distracted talking, how they'd have cookie decorating contests with terrible frosting techniques, how Daddy always ate too many and made himself sick. "She told me once that the secret to good cookies was making them with people you love," Emma said, carefully transferring cookies to a cooling rack. She said the love got baked right in, and you could taste it. Noah's hands stilled. "I forgot she used to say that." "I remember lots of things now, since we started looking at the pictures." Emma glanced at Ava. Ava said memories don't disappear, they just need help coming back sometimes. "Ava's pretty smart," Noah said quietly, meeting Ava's eyes across the kitchen with an expression that made her heart do something complicated. By the time the cookies were done, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone, and all three of them were dusted with flour. They sat at the table with milk and still warm cookies, and for the first time since Ava had arrived, the house felt like a home rather than a museum. That afternoon, while Emma was at school, Ava sat in the backyard with her camera, photographing the garden Sarah had apparently planted years ago. It had gone wild without her care, roses tangling with weeds, the herb bed overgrown, but there was beauty in the chaos. She was framing a shot of sunlight through honeysuckle when Noah joined her. "You're always watching," he observed, settling onto the porch steps. "Even when you're not taking pictures, you're observing." "Occupational hazard. I see the world through frames." "What do you see when you look at us?" The question was more vulnerable than his casual tone suggested. Ava lowered her camera, considering how honest to be. "I see a family learning how to be whole again after being broken. I see a man who loves his daughter enough to face things that terrify him. I see a little girl who's braver than she knows." She paused. "And I see someone who's probably going to need to hire an actual long-term caregiver when I leave in 11 days because I'm wildly unqualified for this job." Noah was quiet for a moment. "What if we don't want someone qualified? What if we just want you?" "Noah, I'm not trying to make this complicated. I know you have a life, a career, plans that don't include playing house in the suburbs. But Emma's happier than she's been in 2 years. The house feels alive again, and I don't think that's just about scheduling and meal preparation. It's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks isn't enough to build a life around. Maybe not, but it's enough to know when something matters." He stood, brushing off his jeans. "Just think about it. You don't have to answer now." He left her alone with her camera and her thoughts, and Ava found herself unable to focus on composition. The truth was, she'd been avoiding thinking about what came after day 30. Her apartment was in storage, her client list on hold, her carefully constructed independent life waiting to be reclaimed. That had been the plan: survive the bet, return to freedom, lesson learned about hubris and contracts signed while intoxicated. But plans changed. Life had a way of disrupting even the most carefully composed frames. The following Tuesday brought Emma's parent-teacher conference, which Noah had marked on the calendar with unusual emphasis. Ava had assumed she'd stay home, but Noah had other ideas. "You should come," he said over breakfast. "You spend more time with Emma than I do. Mrs. Patterson will want to hear from both of us." "I'm not her parent." "No, but you're the person who helps with her homework, makes sure she eats vegetables, and convinced her that school isn't something to just endure. That counts." So Ava found herself walking into Westfield Elementary that afternoon, Noah beside her in business casual clothes that made him look more corporate than she'd seen him. They were ushered into a cheerful second-grade classroom covered in student artwork and inspirational posters. Mrs. Patterson was a woman in her 40s with laugh lines and the kind of practical warmth that made good teachers memorable. She shook both their hands and gestured to the small chairs designed for children. "Thank you both for coming. I wanted to touch base because I've noticed some significant changes in Emma over the past few weeks." Ava's stomach tightened. "Changes?" "Positive ones," Mrs. Patterson smiled. "Emma has always been a good student academically, but she's been very withdrawn socially. She'd eat lunch alone, wouldn't participate in group activities, kept to herself at recess. Recently, though, she started engaging more. She volunteered to read aloud yesterday, which she's never done. She's been playing with other children at recess instead of sitting on the bench, and her latest writing assignment was particularly telling. She pulled out a paper with Emma's careful handwriting and colorful illustrations. The title read, "My Family," in large letters decorated with hearts. "I have the best family," Emma had written. "My dad is really smart and makes me laugh when he tries to cook. My mom died, but I still remember her, and that's okay because she's always with me. And Ava helps me remember that being sad is normal, and making cookies can make everything better. Ava takes care of us and makes our house feel happy again. I hope she stays forever." Ava's vision blurred. Beside her, Noah had gone very still. Mrs. Patterson's voice was gentle. "I don't know what's changed at home, but whatever you're doing is working. Emma is starting to be a child again instead of someone carrying the weight of the world. That's no small thing." The drive home was silent except for the radio playing softly. When they pulled into the driveway, Noah turned off the engine but didn't move to get out. "She wants you to stay forever," he said quietly. Kids say things they don't mean. Emma doesn't. She's the most careful person I know with her words. If she wrote that you make our house feel happy, she meant it. He turned to look at Ava. I meant what I said before. When the 30 days are up, I'd like you to stay. Not as temporary help, but as part of our lives. Whatever that looks like. I don't know what that would look like. Neither do I, but we could figure it out together. Before Ava could respond, her phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at it reflexively, then froze. The sender was Marcus Chen, senior editor at National Geographic. The subject line, assignment opportunity, immediate response needed. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Marcus was offering her a dream assignment, 6 weeks documenting refugee communities in Southeast Asia, full creative control, substantial pay, and publication guaranteed in the print magazine. It was the kind of opportunity that could define a career, the exact trajectory she'd been working toward for years. The catch? She needed to leave in 10 days. Day 29 of her 30-day sentence in suburban purgatory. Everything okay? Noah's voice seemed to come from very far away. Yeah, just work stuff. She pocketed her phone, her mind spinning. We should go inside. Emma will be home soon. That night, after Emma was asleep and the kitchen cleaned, Ava sat in her guest room and read the email 17 times. Marcus had included a detailed brief, human interest stories, intimate portraits of resilience, exactly the kind of meaningful work that had drawn her to photography in the first place. The assignment would cement her reputation, lead to more opportunities, justify every sacrifice she'd made to build her career. All she had to do was walk away from a little girl who wanted her to stay forever and a man who'd become something more than a temporary employer. She drafted and deleted 5 responses to Marcus. Yes, I'm available. Send details. No, I have prior commitments. Maybe, can I have more time to consider? Each version felt wrong in different ways. Her phone lit up with a text from Maya. 12 days until freedom. You counting down yet? Ava stared at the message. 12 days. Less than 2 weeks until she could reclaim her life, return to her apartment, pick up where she'd left off. The bet would be won. Derek's smug satisfaction denied, her savings intact. But Emma's essay haunted her. Ava helps me remember that being sad is normal, and making cookies can make everything better. She hadn't signed up for this. Hadn't volunteered to become emotionally invested in a grieving family. The bet had been about pride and consequences, about proving she could handle structure and responsibility. It wasn't supposed to become about mattering to people who desperately needed someone to show up and stay. Ava pulled out her camera and scrolled through the photos she'd taken over the past 3 weeks. She'd been documenting without thinking about it. Emma's concentration face while doing homework, Noah's rare, genuine smile, the way morning light filled the kitchen during their pancake rituals, Sarah's wild garden, the 3 of them covered in flour and laughing. These weren't assignment photos. They were memories. A story she'd become part of rather than just observed. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Noah. You awake? Come downstairs if you are. I made tea and I'm a terrible insomniac who could use company. She found him in the kitchen, 2 mugs steaming on the counter. He handed her one without speaking, and they moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the couch in comfortable silence. You got bad news, Noah said eventually. I saw your face when you checked your phone earlier. Not bad news, complicated news. Want to talk about it? Ava wrapped her hands around the mug, feeling its warmth. I got offered a photography assignment. A really good one. National Geographic, 6 weeks in Southeast Asia. Everything I've been working toward. That's incredible. Congratulations. I'd have to leave in 10 days. Understanding dawned in Noah's expression, followed by something that looked like resignation. Ah. Noah, it's okay. This was always temporary. We knew that. Did we, though? Because Emma's essay today suggested she's been thinking about this very differently. Emma's 8. She gets attached easily. But his voice lacked conviction. She's not the only one. Ava set down her mug. I came here because of a stupid bet. I was supposed to serve my time, learn my lesson, and go back to my real life. I wasn't supposed to care whether a little girl remembers her mother's voice or whether her father ever learns to talk about his grief. But you do care. Yeah, I really do. She met his eyes. And that's terrifying because caring means choosing. It means one decision affects multiple lives, not just mine. Noah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. What do you want me to say? That you should turn down your dream job to play house with us? That would be selfish. Emma and I will be okay. We were surviving before you got here. Surviving isn't living. Maybe not. But it's not fair to ask you to give up your career because we've gotten used to having you around. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. You deserve to chase your dreams, Ava. You've worked hard for this. Don't let a 3-week detour derail everything you've built. What if it's not a detour? What if it's actually the road I'm supposed to be on? You don't know that. You're caught up in the emotion of this situation. In 6 months, you'll be grateful you didn't throw away an incredible opportunity for what was essentially a really nice extended house-sitting gig. The words stung because they were probably true, or at least they were the rational argument she should be making to herself. But rationality felt hollow when weighed against Emma's laughter in the kitchen, the way Noah had finally started healing, the sense of purpose she'd found in helping this broken family become whole. Can I ask you something? Ava said. If the situation were reversed, if you got offered your dream job across the country, would you take it? That's different. I have Emma to consider. Exactly. You'd factor in how your choice affects someone you care about. Why is it selfish when I do the same thing? Noah's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through his careful composure. Because I don't want to be the reason you resent your life in 5 years. I don't want Emma to be the guilt that keeps you from becoming who you're meant to be. And I really don't want to be the guy who asks someone to stay when leaving is clearly the right choice. What if staying is the right choice? Then you wouldn't be this conflicted about it. He had a point. Ava drew her knees up to her chest, feeling exhausted by the weight of the decision. I don't know what to do. Sleep on it. You don't have to decide tonight. Noah stood, collecting their mugs. For what it's worth, I think you'd be amazing in Southeast Asia. Your photos have this way of seeing humanity that most people miss. The world should get to see that. He left her alone in the living room, and Ava sat in the darkness watching the way streetlight filtered through the curtains. She thought about her camera bag upstairs, full of equipment she'd barely used in 3 weeks. She thought about the assignments she'd turned down, the gallery showings she'd postponed, the career momentum she'd sacrificed for this unexpected detour. She also thought about Emma sleeping upstairs, finally able to remember her mother without drowning in grief. About Noah learning to talk about feelings instead of burying them. About the way this house had transformed from a tomb to a home. Both futures felt real. Both mattered, and she had no idea how to choose between them. The next morning, Ava woke early and did something she hadn't done in weeks. She went for a run. The subdivision streets were quiet in the pre-dawn light, her breath forming clouds in the cool air. She ran without thinking about pace or distance, just moving, letting her body process what her mind couldn't untangle. When she returned, sweaty and exhausted, Emma was at the kitchen table eating cereal and coloring. You went running, Emma looked delighted. Mommy used to run in the mornings. Daddy said it helped her think. Ava grabbed water from the fridge, trying to catch her breath. Did it work? I don't know. She never told me what she was thinking about. Emma returned to her coloring, then added casually, Are you thinking about leaving? The question hit like a physical blow. What makes you ask that? You had your thinking face last night, and Daddy had his sad face. And this morning you went running like you needed to decide something important. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, but her crayon pressed harder against the paper. It's okay if you have to go. I know you have your own life. I just wanted you to know that I'll miss you if you do. Ava sat down beside her, throat tight. Emma. It's okay, Emma interrupted, still not looking up from her coloring. People leave. Sometimes they don't have a choice. Mommy didn't choose to leave, and you didn't choose to come here. But you came anyway and you helped us even though you didn't have to. That's more than most people do. The wisdom in the words, the resignation, the courage. It was too much for 8 years old. Ava reached out and stilled Emma's coloring hand. Look at me. She waited until Emma's eyes met hers. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But I promise that whatever I decide, I'll be honest with you about it. And I promise that even if I leave, I won't disappear from your life, okay? Okay? Emma's voice was small. Do you think, if you go, could we still video chat sometimes? And maybe you could send me photos from your travels? Daddy says you take pictures of amazing things. I think that could be arranged. Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied, and returned to her coloring. But Ava noticed the way her small shoulders remained tense, the way she gripped the crayon a little too tightly. Another adult making promises about staying connected, and Emma already knew how those promises usually ended. The day passed in a blur of ordinary tasks made extraordinary by their potential impermanence. Grocery shopping felt weighted with significance. Would this be the last time she navigated these familiar aisles? Helping with homework became precious. How many more afternoons did she have to watch Emma's face light up when math finally made sense? That evening, Noah asked if she'd join him for the first family therapy session with Dr. Morrison. Emma would go in first alone, then they'd join her for the last 20 minutes. You don't have to, Noah said. I know it's outside the scope of what you signed up for. At this point, everything is outside the scope of what I signed up for, Ava replied. I'll come. Dr. Morrison's office felt different, knowing she'd be part of the session rather than waiting outside. When they were called in, Emma sat on the couch between them, looking nervous but determined. Emma's been doing excellent work, Dr. Morrison began. Today we talked about building new family traditions while honoring old ones. Emma, do you want to share what you told me? Emma took a deep breath. I said that I want to keep making Mommy's cookies and looking at her pictures, but I also want to do new things, like making pancakes with Ava and having Daddy eat dinner with us instead of in his office. I said that remembering Mommy and being happy now can happen at the same time. But Noah's hand found Emma's, squeezing gently. That's really mature, sweetheart. Dr. Morrison helped me understand that loving new people doesn't mean forgetting old people. There's room for both. Emma glanced at Ava. I was worried that if I loved Ava, it meant I didn't love Mommy enough. But Dr. Morrison said that's not how love works. Ava felt tears threatening. Dr. Morrison smiled kindly and said, Love isn't a limited resource. It expands to hold whoever needs holding. Emma's learning that she can miss her mother and also appreciate the people who are here now. That's a powerful lesson. The session continued with discussions about coping strategies and communication techniques, but Ava couldn't shake Emma's words. Loving new people doesn't mean forgetting old people. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted by emotional honesty. Noah pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine, but made no move to wake her. She thinks of you as someone she could love, he said quietly. That's not something she's been open to since Sarah died. I know. And that makes this harder. I know that too. They sat in the darkening car, both watching Emma sleep with the resilience only children possessed, able to bare their hearts and then drift peacefully into dreams. Whatever you decide, Noah said finally, thank you for these 3 weeks. You gave us back something we'd lost. That matters, regardless of what happens next. Ava wanted to tell him that she'd already decided, that her heart had made the choice even if her head was still arguing, but the words stuck, tangled with fear and possibility, and the terrifying recognition that sometimes the best decisions were the ones that scared you most. Instead, she helped carry a sleeping Emma inside, tucking her into bed still in her clothes because waking her seemed cruel. They stood together in the doorway of Emma's room, watching her breathe the easy rhythm of childhood sleep. And Ava knew with absolute certainty that whatever she chose next would define more than just her career. It would define who she wanted to be when the cameras stopped clicking and the adventures ended and life came down to moments exactly like this. Quiet, ordinary, impossibly precious. The morning of day 26 arrived with unexpected sunshine and Ava's deadline from Marcus looming like a countdown clock. She had 48 hours to accept or decline the National Geographic assignment. 48 hours to choose between the career she'd spent years building and a family that wasn't technically hers but felt more real than anything she'd photographed. She made pancakes on autopilot, her hands moving through familiar motions while her mind churned. Emma appeared in her pajamas, hair sticking up in wild directions, and climbed onto her usual chair. 4 more days, Emma said quietly, stirring her orange juice with a straw. Until what? Until your 30 days are done. Until the bet is over. Emma's voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes were anxious. Have you decided yet? About the job? Ava flipped a pancake, buying time. Not yet. It's a big decision. Daddy says big decisions are scary because they mean something important. Your daddy's pretty smart. He also says that sometimes the scary choice is the right choice. Emma paused, then added in a rush, but I hope you pick the scary choice that means staying here, even though I know that's selfish. Ava abandoned the stove and sat beside Emma, taking the girl's small hands in her own. It's not selfish to want people to stay. That's just loving someone. Do you love us? The question was whispered, vulnerable. The honest answer caught in Ava's throat. 3 weeks ago, she would have laughed at the absurdity of falling in love with a family she'd been forced into by a drunken bet. But 3 weeks ago, she hadn't known what Emma's real laugh sounded like, hadn't seen Noah's carefully constructed walls crumble, hadn't felt the profound rightness of being needed in exactly this way. Yeah, sweetheart, I really do. Emma's face lit up with hope so bright it was almost painful to witness. Then, you'll stay? I didn't say that. Love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes love means making the choice that's best for everyone, even if it's hard. The light dimmed slightly. That sounds like something adults say when they're going to leave. Before Ava could respond, Noah appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day in jeans and a button-down. His eyes moved between them, reading the emotional temperature with increasing accuracy. Everything okay in here? Fine, Emma said quickly, too quickly. Can I be excused? I need to get ready for school. She fled before either adult could answer, leaving Ava and Noah alone in the kitchen with burned pancakes and unspoken questions. Noah poured himself coffee, his movements deliberate. You told her you love us. You were eavesdropping. I was giving you space until I heard crying. Then I was monitoring to see if I needed to intervene. He leaned against the counter. For the record, I think that might have been the first time anyone said that word in this house since Sarah died. Thank you for that. I probably shouldn't have. It just makes everything more complicated. Love usually does. He took a sip of coffee, studying her over the rim of his mug. You're going to take the assignment, aren't you? I don't know. Ava, you're one of the most decisive people I've met. You don't do paralysis well. The fact that you're still undecided tells me you're trying to talk yourself into something your gut is already rejecting. My gut doesn't pay rent. My gut didn't spend 8 years building a photography career. My gut is notoriously unreliable when emotions are involved. What does your heart say? The question was too direct, too honest. Ava turned back to the stove, scraping burned pancakes into the trash. My heart says I want to stay. My heart says these 3 weeks have mattered more than the last 3 years combined. My heart says walking away from you and Emma would be the biggest mistake of my life. But my heart also said I should bet against Derek Chen, and look where that got me. My heart is demonstrably terrible at long-term planning. She faced him again, frustration bleeding through. What if I stay and in 6 months I resent you both for the opportunities I gave up? What if I'm terrible at this long term and Emma gets hurt worse than if I left now? What if you stayed and it was exactly what you needed? Noah set down his mug, moving closer. What if the life you've been chasing isn't actually the one that makes you happy? What if these 3 weeks showed you something about yourself that you've been too busy running to notice? That's a lot of what ifs. Life is what ifs. The only certainty is that doing nothing is still a choice. He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes. I can't tell you what to do, Ava. I can only tell you that Emma isn't the only one who hopes you'll stay. And I can tell you that if you do leave, you'll be missed more than you probably realize. The air between them felt charged with everything unsaid. Ava had been so focused on Emma's needs, on being the steady presence that helped a child heal, that she'd somehow missed the way Noah had started looking at her. Not like hired help or a temporary solution, but like someone who mattered in a completely different way. Noah! Emma's voice called from upstairs. Ava! I can't find my math homework! The moment broke. Noah stepped back, and Ava exhaled a breath she hadn't known she was holding. She headed for the stairs, feeling his eyes on her back, and wondered if it was possible to make a good decision when every option felt simultaneously right and wrong. The school day passed in a haze. Ava cleaned the house with unusual vigor, scrubbing counters that were already clean, organizing closets that didn't need organizing, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from the looming deadline. At 2 o'clock, her phone rang. Maya. "Please tell me you're packing," her best friend said without preamble. "Please tell me you're not actually considering staying in suburban purgatory with a man and child you've known for less than a month." "Hi, Maya. I'm fine. Thanks for asking." "Don't deflect. I know you. I can hear it in your voice. You're thinking about staying. Ava, this is National Geographic. This is everything we've talked about since college. You don't turn down this kind of opportunity for a family you stumbled into by accident. What if it wasn't an accident? What if this is exactly where I'm supposed to be?" Maya was silent for a long moment. "Oh no, you're in love with him." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. I've known you for 10 years, and you've never once questioned your career for a guy. The fact that you're even hesitating means this is serious." Maya's voice softened. "Ava, I love you. I want you to be happy. But please don't make a life-altering decision based on 3 weeks of playing house. You don't even know if this could work long-term." "I know that Emma's therapist says she's made more progress in 3 weeks than she did in 2 years. I know that Noah is finally dealing with his grief instead of burying it. I know that I wake up every morning actually looking forward to the day instead of just checking off tasks on a to-do list." "That's beautiful." It's also the honeymoon phase of a situation that has a built-in expiration date. What happens when the novelty wears off? When you're stuck in carpool lines and parent-teacher conferences instead of documenting stories that matter to the world? These stories matter too. Just because they're small doesn't mean they're not significant. I'm not saying they're not significant to you. I'm saying you've worked too hard to throw it all away for a man who might not even want the same things you do. Maya paused. "Have you actually talked to Noah about what staying would look like? About whether he even wants a relationship, or if he's just grateful for the help with his kid?" The question hit home because Ava hadn't. They danced around the subject, implied feelings without declaring them, built something indefinable in the space between employer and family. But they'd never actually discussed what came after day 30. "That's what I thought," Maya said, reading Ava's silence correctly. "Listen, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that you need to have an actual conversation with actual words before you make a decision that affects the rest of your life. Don't assume you know what he wants. Ask him." After they hung up, Ava sat in the silent house and acknowledged the truth in Maya's words. She'd been operating on assumptions and implications, reading meaning into gestures and glances without confirmation. For all she knew, Noah saw her as exactly what the contract stipulated: temporary help that had exceeded expectations but would eventually be replaced by someone permanent and qualified. The thought made her stomach twist, but it had to be addressed. She pulled out her phone and typed a text to Noah. "Can we talk tonight after Emma's in bed? Important." His response came within seconds. "Of course. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just need clarity on some things." "I'll make coffee. The good stuff. Not my usual engine degreaser." Despite everything, she smiled. 3 weeks ago, Noah Brooks had been a stranger defined by grief and distance. Now his terrible coffee was an inside joke, and the thought of not seeing him every day felt like losing something essential. Emma came home full of energy, chattering about a science project on volcanoes that required parental involvement. They spent the afternoon constructing a papier-mâché mountain in the kitchen, Emma narrating her vision while Ava mixed paste and Noah cut cardboard with engineering precision. "It needs to be tall enough to really erupt," Emma declared, adding another layer of newspaper strips. "Mrs. Patterson said the best projects are the ones that show dramatic results." "Dramatic is definitely achievable," Noah said, studying their creation with mock seriousness, "though I'm not sure our kitchen is rated for volcanic activity." "It's for science, Daddy. Science requires sacrifice," Ava laughed, watching them work together with an ease that had been absent weeks ago. This was what she'd miss if she left, not just Emma or Noah individually, but the three of them together. This strange little family unit that had formed from necessity and transformed into something precious. Later, after dinner and homework, and the elaborate bedtime routine that Emma had developed, Ava found herself pacing the guest room. In 30 minutes, she'd go downstairs and have the conversation that would determine everything. She needed to ask Noah what he actually wanted, what staying would mean, whether the feelings she'd been interpreting were real or just gratitude wrapped in proximity. Her phone buzzed with an email from Marcus. Need your answer by tomorrow morning. Time-sensitive opportunity. Don't overthink this. It's the kind of assignment careers are made of. Hope to hear yes. M. The pressure felt suffocating. Tomorrow morning. Less than 12 hours to choose between two completely different futures. At 9:30, she descended the stairs to find Noah in the living room, 2 mugs of actual good coffee on the table and nervous energy radiating from his posture. He gestured to the couch, and she sat, leaving careful distance between them. You look terrified, Noah observed. Should I be worried? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Not polite, not careful. Honest. Okay, Ava took a breath. What am I to you? Not the job description, not the role I've been playing. What do you actually want from me? Noah's expression shifted through several emotions before settling on something vulnerable and resolute. That's a complicated question. I've got time. He leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. 3 weeks ago, you showed up because of a bet. I saw you as a temporary solution to a problem I didn't want to admit I had, that I was drowning and taking Emma down with me. I thought if I could just maintain the schedule, keep everything controlled, we'd survive until life got easier. And now? Now I realize survival isn't enough. And I realize that somewhere in the past 3 weeks, you stopped being temporary help and started being essential. He met her eyes. I'm in love with you, Ava, not because you're convenient or because you're good with Emma, though you're both those things. I'm in love with you because you're brave enough to call me on my mistakes, because you see the world through a lens that makes everything more beautiful, because you walked into our broken house and helped us remember how to be whole. Ava's heart was doing complicated gymnastics in her chest. Noah, let me finish. I know it's only been 3 weeks. I know that's insane and impulsive and completely irrational. I know you have the National Geographic offer and a career that matters and a whole life that doesn't include suburban carpools and homework help. I know that asking you to stay is selfish when you could be documenting stories that change the world. But I'm asking anyway. Not because I want to trap you or limit you or make you give up your dreams. I'm asking because I think maybe we could build something that doesn't require choosing between your career and this family. I'm asking because Emma deserves to have someone who loves her show up and stay. And I'm asking because the thought of you leaving feels like losing Sarah all over again, and I can't go through that twice. The honesty was devastating and beautiful, and everything Ava hadn't known she needed to hear. She set down her untouched coffee, her hands trembling. I need to tell you something too. I emailed Marcus 2 hours ago and turned down the assignment. Noah's eyes widened. What? Ava, no. Let me finish. She echoed his words back to him. I turned it down because I realized that I've been chasing the wrong dream. I thought success meant assignments in exotic locations and publication in prestigious magazines, and maybe for some photographers, that's exactly what it means. But for me, the past 3 weeks have shown me that the stories that matter most are the ones happening right in front of me. You can't give up your career for us. I'm not. I'm redirecting it. I'm choosing to document the stories that don't make headlines but matter anyway. Families healing, children learning to grieve, ordinary moments that become extraordinary when you pay attention. I'm choosing to build a life instead of just capturing other people's lives. You'll resent us. In a year, 5 years, you'll look back and wonder what you gave up. Maybe. Or maybe I'll look back and realize this was the moment everything actually began. She moved closer, taking his hands. I'm terrified, Noah. I'm terrified of making the wrong choice, of failing at this, of not being enough for Emma or for you. But I'm more terrified of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what if. Noah pulled her into his arms, and Ava let herself be held, feeling 3 weeks of careful distance collapse into something real and necessary. They stayed like that for a long time. 2 people who'd been broken in different ways, finding unexpected wholeness in each other. I love you, Noah said into her hair. I should have said it first instead of hiding behind careful explanations. I love you too, and I love Emma, and I love this weird little family we've accidentally built. So you're staying? Really staying? Not just until day 30? I'm staying, if you'll have me. Not as hired help, but as... She pulled back to look at him. What would I be? We haven't exactly defined this. How about family? Noah suggested. We can figure out the specifics as we go, but family seems like a good starting place. Family, Ava agreed. I like that. They kissed then, tentative at first, and then with the certainty of people who'd found something worth the risk. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Noah was smiling in a way Ava had never seen, unguarded and genuinely happy. We should probably tell Emma, he said. She's been campaigning pretty hard for you to stay. Tomorrow. Tonight, let's just be us for a little while. They talked until past midnight, mapping out possibilities. Ava could convert the guest room into a photography studio, take on local clients, build a portfolio focused on family and community stories. Noah's company had flexible remote work policies. Maybe they could travel sometimes, bring Emma along, blend Ava's need for adventure with their need for stability. It wouldn't be the career path Ava had envisioned. But looking at Noah's face in the lamplight, thinking about Emma's delight when she learned Ava was staying, considering the life they could build together, it felt like something better than a vision. It felt like home. The next morning, Emma appeared at breakfast to find both adults already in the kitchen, making pancakes together and laughing at Noah's terrible flipping technique. She stopped in the doorway, her expression wary. Did something happen? Ava turned from the stove, suddenly nervous. This was a child who'd lost her mother, who'd learned that love meant eventual loss, who'd been careful with her heart for good reason. Asking her to trust again was a huge request. Emma, come sit down. We want to talk to you about something. Emma's face went pale. You're leaving. Actually, the opposite. Ava sat beside her, Noah taking the other side. I'm staying. Not just for the last few days of the bet, but for good. If that's okay with you. Emma's eyes went huge. Really? You mean it? I mean it. I turned down the job. I want to stay here with you and your dad. But what about your photography? What about your adventures? I'll still take pictures, but I realize that the best adventures are the ones you have with people you love. And I love you, Emma. You and your dad both. Emma launched herself at Ava with enough force to nearly knock her off the chair, wrapping small arms around her waist and holding on like she might disappear if she let go. She was crying, but they were happy tears, the kind that came from relief and joy mixing together. I love you too, Emma said into Ava's shoulder. I was so scared you were going to leave like everyone else. I'm not everyone else, and I'm not leaving. Ava stroked Emma's hair, meeting Noah's eyes over his daughter's head. I'm home. They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them tangled together in the morning light, pancakes burning on the stove and nobody caring. When Emma finally pulled back, her face was blotchy but radiant. Can we still make cookies together? Absolutely. And you'll help me with my volcano project? I wouldn't miss it. And you'll be here for my birthday next month? I'll be here for every birthday. Ava brushed tears from Emma's cheeks. I promise. Emma turned to her father. Daddy, is Ava going to be part of our family for real? Noah smiled, pulling them both close. Yeah, sweetheart, for real. Like, Emma hesitated, the question too big and scary to ask directly. Like, more than just living here? We'll figure out exactly what that looks like as we go, Noah said carefully. But yes, more than just living here. Ava's family now, however we define that. Emma nodded, satisfied with an answer that left room for possibility without making promises that might break. She'd learned caution the hard way, but she was also learning to hope again. That seemed like enough for now. The rest of the day passed in a blur of normalcy made extraordinary by permanence. Ava called Maya to share the news, weathering her best friend's initial shock and eventual cautious support. She emailed Marcus with a longer explanation and thanks for the opportunity, feeling both regret and rightness in equal measure. She started moving her belongings from temporary storage to permanent residence, each box unpacked feeling like commitment made tangible. That evening, they worked on Emma's volcano together, the kitchen covered in newspaper and paint, and the kind of creative chaos that came from people comfortable enough to make messes together. Emma narrated her vision while Noah engineered structural integrity, and Ava documented it all with her camera, capturing the moments between the moments. Noah's concentration face, Emma's paint-splattered nose, the way they moved around each other with increasing ease. These were the photos that mattered, not exotic locations or dramatic landscapes, but this, ordinary life made beautiful by love and attention and showing up every day. Later, after Emma was asleep and the kitchen cleaned, Ava and Noah sat in the backyard under the stars. Sarah's wild garden surrounded them, months of neglect creating a different kind of beauty. "I've been thinking," Noah said, "maybe we should tackle the garden together, not to erase what Sarah made, but to tend it again. Make it something that honors her but also grows forward." "I'd like that. And maybe we could plan a trip. Nothing crazy, just a long weekend somewhere Emma's never been. Start building new memories while keeping the old ones." "Also good." They sat in comfortable silence, and Ava thought about the bet that had brought her here. Derek Chen had meant it as punishment, as proof that she couldn't handle structure and responsibility. Instead, he'd accidentally handed her the exact life she'd needed without knowing she wanted it. Losing that bet had been the best thing that ever happened to her. "Day 30 is in 4 days," Noah said quietly. "Derek will expect you to report back, prove you fulfilled the contract. Let him wait. I've got more important things to do." "Like what?" Ava smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Like figuring out how to build a life that doesn't require choosing between dreams. Like helping a little girl plan a birthday party. Like falling in love with a family that was never supposed to be mine, but somehow is. Those sound like pretty good priorities. The best." Above them, stars wheeled through the sky, indifferent to human struggles and choices. But down here in the wild garden, surrounded by the ghosts of grief and the promise of new growth, Ava felt certain of one thing. Sometimes the wrong turn leads exactly where you need to go. Sometimes losing is the first step to winning what actually matters. And sometimes home isn't a place you find. It's a family you choose to build, one pancake breakfast and therapy session and late-night conversation at a time. Day 30 arrived on a Tuesday morning with rain pattering against the windows and the smell of coffee filling the kitchen. Ava stood at the counter making what had become her signature pancakes, watching water streak down the glass and thinking about how much had changed since she'd first pulled into this driveway 4 weeks ago. The bet was officially over. She'd fulfilled every term of Derek Chen's contract, survived 30 days of live-in caregiving, and kept her savings account intact. She'd also fallen completely in love with a family that was never supposed to be hers. Noah appeared in the doorway, hair still damp from his shower, and wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. The gesture was still new enough to make her heart skip, familiar enough to feel like home. "Happy Freedom Day," he murmured against her neck. "How does it feel to have served your sentence?" "Like the worst punishment that ever happened to me," she said, leaning back into him. "Truly terrible. I can't believe I had to endure pancakes and family dinners and falling in love. Derek Chen is diabolical." Noah laughed, the sound rich and unguarded. "We should probably send him a thank you card. Thanks for the manipulative bet that accidentally gave us everything we needed." "He'd hate that." "Exactly." Emma thundered down the stairs with her usual morning energy, skidding into the kitchen in mismatched socks. She stopped short when she saw them, a grin spreading across her face. "Are you guys being mushy again? Because it's gross, but also kind of nice." "We can tone down the mush if you want," Ava offered, untangling herself from Noah to flip pancakes. "No, it's okay. Mushy is good. It means you're not leaving." Emma climbed into her chair, swinging her legs. "So what happens now that the bet is over?" "Well, I was thinking we could celebrate," Ava said, plating pancakes and adding fresh berries. "Maybe go out for dinner tonight, somewhere nice where we don't have to cook or clean up. Can we get dessert?" "Absolutely." "And can we invite Maya? I like her. She's funny and she tells embarrassing stories about you." Noah choked on his coffee. "I like this kid's priorities." They ate breakfast together, the conversation flowing easily between school projects and work deadlines and weekend plans. This was what Ava had been missing in her old life. Not the adventure or the exotic locations, but the dailiness of love. The routine that became sacred through repetition. After dropping Emma at school, Ava returned home to find an email waiting from Derek Chen. The subject line read simply, "Contract completion confirmation required." She opened it, already knowing what it would say. Derek wanted documentation that she'd fulfilled the 30-day requirement, proof of completion so he could close his files on their agreement. The email was professional and cold, exactly what she'd expected from a man who'd used her pride against her. But reading it now, Ava felt nothing but gratitude. Derek had meant to teach her a lesson about consequences and responsibility. Instead, he'd handed her a gift disguised as punishment. She replied with equal professionalism. "Contract fulfilled as agreed, all terms met. Thank you for the opportunity." Then she added a postscript she knew would irritate him. "P.S. I'm staying on with the Brooks family indefinitely. Turns out I'm quite good at structure and responsibility when it matters. Best regards, Ava." His response came within minutes. "Staying on? That wasn't part of the agreement." Ava smiled as she typed back. "No, it wasn't. This part is my choice. Funny how that works." She didn't expect another reply and didn't get one. Derek Chen had played his game and lost in the most spectacular way possible by accidentally winning her exactly what she needed. The day passed in productive normalcy. Ava spent the morning setting up her new home office in what had been the guest room, arranging her photography equipment and editing software with the care of someone building something permanent. She'd already lined up 3 local clients, a family portrait session, a small wedding, and documentation for a community center's anniversary celebration. Not National Geographic, but meaningful in different ways. Around noon, her phone rang. Maya. "So I got your invite for tonight," her best friend said without preamble. "Dinner with you, Noah, and Emma to celebrate your descent into suburban domesticity. Should I bring anything? Wine, judgment, a reality check?" "Your sparkling personality is sufficient." "Seriously, though, are you okay? Like, really okay? Because a month ago you were planning your next big assignment, and now you're playing house in the suburbs. That's a pretty dramatic pivot." Ava understood the concern beneath Maya's sarcasm. They'd been friends long enough that Maya had witnessed every relationship, every career setback, every moment of doubt and triumph. She'd earned the right to question. "I'm better than okay. I know it seems fast and crazy, but May, this feels right in a way nothing else has. I'm not giving up photography. I'm just redirecting it towards stories that matter to me differently. And if it doesn't work out, if you wake up in 6 months missing your old life, then I'll adjust. But I don't think that's going to happen. This isn't about running away from my career. It's about running toward a life that actually fulfills me." Maya was quiet for a moment. "You sound different. Settled. Less like you're constantly searching for the next thing. Maybe I found what I was searching for." "Okay, that's disgustingly romantic. And I hate that I'm tearing up at work right now." Maya's voice was thick with emotion. "I'm happy for you, Ava. Truly. You deserve this." "Thanks, May. That means everything. But if he hurts you, I'm bringing my lawyer brother. The good one, not Derek. And we're taking everything he owns." Duly noted. That afternoon, Ava picked up Emma from school and found the girl unusually quiet during the drive home. Not upset, but contemplative in the way children got when working through big thoughts. "What's on your mind, kiddo?" Ava asked. Emma fiddled with her backpack straps. "We had to write about families in class today. Mrs. Patterson said families come in all different shapes and sizes, and that what makes a family isn't just who you're related to, but who loves you and takes care of you." "That sounds right." "So I wrote about us. About how you came here because of a bet, but stayed because you love us. And how Daddy is happy again. And how I can talk about Mommy now, without being scared." Emma's voice was small but steady. "But then Chelsea Anderson asked if you're my new mom, and I didn't know what to say." Ava's heart clenched. This was the conversation she'd been both expecting and dreading, the one that required honesty and care in equal measure. She pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and turned to face Emma fully. "What did you want to say?" "I don't know, because you're not my mom. Mommy is my mom, even though she's not here anymore. But you're also really important, and I love you, and I don't know what to call that." "Emma, look at me." Ava waited until the girl's eyes met hers. "You're absolutely right. I'm not your mom, and I would never try to replace her. Your mom will always be your mom, in your heart, in your memories, in who you are. Nobody can change that. Then what are you? I'm someone who loves you and wants to be part of your life. We can call that whatever feels right to you. Some people might say stepmom eventually, or just Ava, or something else entirely. The label doesn't matter as much as the truth, that you're stuck with me now and I'm not going anywhere. Emma considered this, her young face serious. Can I just call you Ava? And you can be like, my person? The person who helps me remember mommy and also makes really good pancakes and takes pictures of everything and makes daddy smile again? Your person, I love that. Yes, I can absolutely be your person. The tension in Emma's shoulders released. Okay, good, because Chelsea Anderson's family is really boring and normal, and I like that we're different. I like that my family has mommy in heaven, and daddy, and you and Maya, who tells funny stories, and Dr. Morrison, who helps me with my feelings. That's better than boring and normal. Ava pulled Emma into a hug, overwhelmed by this child's capacity to understand complexity, to hold multiple truths at once, to create space for both grief and joy. You're pretty amazing, you know that? Daddy says I get it from mommy. The being amazing part. I think you get it from both of them. They drove home in comfortable silence, and Ava thought about the gift Emma had just given her, permission to be important without erasing Sarah, to be family without claiming a title that belonged to someone else. It was more than she'd hoped for, and exactly what they both needed. That evening, they all dressed up for dinner. Emma wore a dress she'd picked out herself, purple with sparkles that she declared was fancy but not too fancy. Noah appeared in a button-down shirt Ava had never seen, looking uncomfortable and handsome in equal measure. And Ava chose a simple black dress that Maya had helped her pick out years ago for gallery openings. We look like real people, Noah observed, studying them in the hallway mirror. Like a family that has their act together and goes places. Don't get used to it, Ava warned. Tomorrow it's back to jeans and pancake batter. Thank goodness. This shirt has buttons and everything. It's very stressful. Maya met them at the restaurant, arriving in a whirlwind of energy and expensive perfume. She swept Emma into a hug, complimented Noah's shirt with obvious amusement, and gave Ava a look that said they'd be having a detailed conversation later. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Emma ordered spaghetti and got sauce on her fancy dress within the first 10 minutes. Noah told terrible jokes that made Emma groan and Ava laugh despite herself. Maya shared increasingly embarrassing stories from Ava's college years, including the time she'd tried to photograph a sunrise at the beach and gotten swept away by a wave, losing her camera and her dignity simultaneously. I got the shot, though, Ava protested, right before the wave hit. You lost a $1,000 camera for a photo of orange sky. That's not dedication, that's poor risk assessment. It was a really good orange sky. Watching them together, Maya teasing, Emma giggling, Noah relaxed and smiling, Ava felt a profound sense of rightness. This was her family now, biological and chosen, traditional and unconventional, bound by love rather than obligation. After dessert, while Emma and Maya were debating the merits of chocolate versus vanilla ice cream, Noah reached under the table and took Ava's hand. Happy? He asked quietly. Ridiculously so. Good, because I have something I want to ask you, but I wanted to wait until we were all together. He raised his voice slightly. Hey Emma, Maya, can you pause the great ice cream debate for a second? They turned, curiosity evident on both faces. Noah stood, still holding Ava's hand, and suddenly looked nervous in a way she'd never seen him. So this might be terrible timing, and if it is, just tell me and we'll pretend it never happened. But we've spent the past month figuring out what matters and what doesn't. And I realize that there are some things you shouldn't wait for perfect timing to say. Ava's heart started pounding. Noah, what? Let me finish before I lose my nerve. He turned to Emma. Emma, is it okay with you if I ask Ava something important? Emma's eyes went wide. Are you going to ask her to marry us? Eventually, yeah. If she says yes. But right now I just want to ask her to officially move in, to stop thinking of herself as temporary, to make this permanent in all the ways that matter. He faced Ava again, his gray eyes steady despite the vulnerability in his expression. Ava Reynolds, Will you build a life with us? Will you turn that guest room into a photography studio and argue with me about household organization and help Emma with homework for the next 10 years? Will you be Emma's person and my partner and part of this weird little family we're creating? Ava was crying, she realized dimly, happy tears that she didn't bother wiping away. You know I already said yes to all of that. I turned down National Geographic, remember? I know, but I wanted to ask properly. I wanted you to know that this isn't just about convenience or gratitude. This is me choosing you, choosing us, choosing the life we're building together. Then yes, obviously yes, to all of it. Emma squealed and launched herself at both of them, nearly knocking over a water glass in her enthusiasm. Maya was crying too, Ava noticed, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin and pretending she wasn't. This is the worst bet outcome in history, Maya said, her voice choked with emotion. Derek is going to be so mad. Good, Ava and Noah said simultaneously, then laughed. They finished dinner in a bubble of happiness, making plans and dreaming out loud. Emma wanted to help design Ava's studio, suggesting they paint one wall with chalkboard paint for creative brainstorming. Noah mentioned the possibility of adding a darkroom in the basement if Ava wanted to work with film. Maya volunteered to help with the furniture moving and also to officially declare herself Emma's honorary aunt. Walking to their cars later, Emma between them holding both their hands, Ava looked up at the night sky and thought about the unpredictable nature of life. 4 weeks ago, she'd been furious about a bet that had stolen her freedom. Now she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. The next few weeks passed in a flurry of change and permanence. Ava officially moved all her belongings from storage, transforming the guest room into a functional studio space. She booked her first local clients and discovered that photographing families and communities brought a different kind of satisfaction than chasing dramatic landscapes. The stories were smaller but no less meaningful. A couple celebrating 50 years of marriage, a community garden bringing neighbors together, a child's first day of school. Emma's birthday arrived in early March, bringing with it a party that filled the house with children's laughter for the first time since Sarah's death. Noah had been nervous about it, worried that hosting a party would feel like betraying Sarah's memory, but Ava had helped him understand that life moving forward wasn't betrayal. It was honoring Sarah by giving Emma the childhood she would have wanted for her daughter. They decorated the living room with purple streamers and set up the volcano project as a centerpiece. Emma wore a crown and presided over her friends with the confidence of a child who'd learned that being loved meant being allowed to take up space. When it came time to blow out the candles, she paused, looking at the cake Ava and Noah had made together, slightly lopsided but covered in purple frosting and sparklers. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Noah encouraged. Emma closed her eyes, and Ava could see her lips moving in silent words. When she opened them, her smile was radiant. "What did you wish for?" one of her friends asked. "I can't tell, or it won't come true, but I can tell you that most of it already did." After the party, after the cleanup and the sugar crash and tucking an exhausted Emma into bed, Ava and Noah collapsed on the couch, surrounded by deflated balloons and wrapping paper. "We survived," Noah said, pulling her close. "Our first major family event, and nobody cried or had a breakdown." Emma cried when she opened Maya's present. "Those were happy tears. They don't count." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Thank you for this, for all of it, for seeing what we needed before we knew we needed it. I'm pretty sure you did the same for me." They sat in comfortable silence, the house settling around them. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 8-year-olds dreamed after perfect birthdays. In the corner, Sarah's photograph smiled from the mantel, no longer a shrine, but a cherished memory integrated into ongoing life. "I've been thinking," Noah said eventually, "about making this really official. We just made it official. I live here, remember? My name is on the utility bills and everything. I mean more official than that." He shifted to face her, and Ava recognized the nervous energy from the restaurant. "I know it's only been a few months. I know conventional wisdom says we should wait, be practical, not rush into anything. But conventional wisdom also said that hiding from grief was protecting Emma, and that was completely wrong." "Noah, what are you saying?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I'm saying that I don't want to wait for the right time, because right time is a myth. I'm saying that I love you, and Emma loves you, and you've already chosen us in every way that matters. I'm saying that I want to make this permanent in all the official ways, legally, publicly, forever." He opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band with 3 small stones, sapphire, flanked by 2 diamonds. "The sapphire is for Sarah," he explained, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "because she's part of this family and always will be. The diamonds are for you and Emma, the 2 people who taught me that love doesn't run out, it multiplies. That making space for new love doesn't mean forgetting old love." Ava was crying again, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of it, the way he'd found a way to honor the past while building the future. "Ava Reynolds, will you marry me? Will you officially become Emma's person and my wife and part of this family in every legal, binding, permanent way possible?" "Yes." The word came out choked with tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, because of course he'd somehow figured out her size, and kissed her with the kind of certainty that came from making the right choice for the right reasons. They told Emma the next morning over pancakes. Her reaction was predictably enthusiastic, involving jumping and squealing and immediately wanting to know if she could be a flower girl, and if they could have a purple wedding, and if Maya would help her pick out a dress. "We haven't planned any of it yet," Ava laughed, trying to catch the whirlwind of energy that was Emma in celebration mode. "We just got engaged last night. But we need to plan. Weddings take forever to plan. Mrs. Patterson's daughter got married last year, and she said they planned for 18 months. Emma's eyes were wide with urgency. "We could do something smaller," Noah suggested. "Something simple and soon, just family and close friends." "In the garden," Ava said suddenly, the vision forming as she spoke. "Sarah's garden. We could clean it up, tend it together, make it beautiful again. It would be a way of including her, of showing Emma that we're not erasing the past, we're building on it." Emma's expression shifted from excitement to something deeper. "Mommy would like that. She always said the garden was where she felt most peaceful." "Then that's what we'll do," Noah decided. "A garden wedding, nothing fancy, just the people who matter most. We'll spend the spring getting the garden ready, and maybe by summer it'll be ready for us." They spent the morning looking at Sarah's old gardening journals, finding sketches of her vision for the space, rose arbors and herb spirals, a small fountain she'd never gotten to install, paths lined with lavender. Emma threw herself into the planning with the seriousness of someone given an important mission. Over the following months, the garden became a family project. Every weekend they worked together, pulling weeds, pruning roses, planting new flowers alongside Sarah's original choices. Noah built the arbor Sarah had sketched, following her notes with engineering precision. Emma planted herbs and labeled them with hand-painted stones. Ava documented it all with her camera, capturing the transformation from neglect to beauty. Maya came by often, ostensibly to help, but mostly to provide commentary and emotional support. Dr. Morrison checked in regularly, pleased with Emma's continued progress and the healthy way the family was processing change. And slowly, the garden that had been a monument to loss became a celebration of life continuing. In June, on a Saturday afternoon, warm with summer promise, they gathered in the garden for a wedding that was exactly right in its simplicity. Maya served as maid of honor, simultaneously crying and making jokes to hide her emotion. Emma served as flower girl and ring bearer, taking her dual responsibilities with utmost seriousness. A small group of friends and family witnessed as Noah and Ava promised to love each other through whatever came next. The ceremony was brief and heartfelt. They'd written their own vows, standing under Sarah's rose arbor with Emma between them. "I promise to show up," Ava said, her voice clear despite happy tears. "To choose you every day, even when it's hard. To be Emma's person and your partner and part of this family we've built from broken pieces. To take pictures of ordinary moments and remind us all that life is happening right now, not in some distant future. To make pancakes and tell terrible jokes and love you both with everything I have." Noah's vows were equally simple and profound. "I promise to be brave enough to let you in, to talk about hard things, to not hide behind schedules and control when emotions get messy. I promise to honor Sarah's memory while building our future, to support your dreams even when they scare me, To eat your pancakes and tolerate your terrible photography puns, and love you for exactly who you are. Emma had insisted on her own vows, which she read from a carefully written note card. I promised to do my homework without arguing too much, and to not put off cleaning my room, and to remember that having Ava doesn't mean forgetting Mommy. I promised to be brave like both of you taught me, and to talk about my feelings even when they're scary, and I promised to love our family in all its different shapes because that's what makes it special. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden when they sealed their promises with a kiss and a three-way hug that nearly knocked over the small table holding the ceremony program. The reception was in the backyard, simple and joyful, good food, better company, and dancing on the lawn as the sun set. Emma taught everyone a dance she'd learned in PE class, and Maya gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. To Ava, Maya said, raising her glass, who proved that sometimes the worst bets lead to the best outcomes, who turned a punishment into a purpose and taught us all that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you choose and who chooses you back. As the evening wound down and guests departed, Ava found herself standing in the garden with her new family, fairy lights twinkling overhead and fireflies dancing in the twilight. Emma had fallen asleep on a blanket, worn out from celebration. Noah wrapped an arm around Ava's waist. No regrets? He asked quietly. Not even one. Not even about National Geographic? Especially not about that. This is the story that mattered. This is the one I needed to be part of, not just document. They stood together in the garden Sarah had planted and they had restored, and Ava thought about the strange path that had led her here. A drunken bet, a prideful acceptance, 30 days that were supposed to teach her about consequences and responsibility. Instead, she'd learned about love and belonging and the difference between the life you plan and the life that chooses you. A year later, Ava's photography exhibition opened at a small gallery downtown. It was titled Finding Home, A Year in Photographs, and it told the story of their family in images both intimate and universal. There was Emma covered in flour during cookie making, Noah building the garden arbor with concentration evident in every line of his body, the three of them at the wedding surrounded by flowers and light. But there were also photos of other families, clients she'd worked with, community members she'd documented, stories of loss and healing and everyday grace. The exhibition drew a surprising crowd, including Marcus from National Geographic, who studied the photos with professional interest. "You've found your voice," he said, pausing in front of a photo of Emma touching Sarah's photograph on the mantel, her expression peaceful rather than devastated. This is the kind of work that matters, not because it's exotic or dramatic, but because it's true. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Yisk. I have to ask, though, any regrets about turning down the Southeast Asia assignment? Ava glanced across the gallery where Noah and Emma were studying a photo of the garden in various stages of transformation. Emma was explaining her planting strategy to a bemused visitor while Noah tried not to laugh at her authoritative tone. "Not for a second," she said. "I got the better story." Marcus followed her gaze and smiled. "Yeah, I can see that. For what it's worth, the offer stands if you ever want to do a project with us. We could use someone with your perspective on our family and community coverage." "I'll keep that in mind." But even as she said it, Ava knew her traveling days were behind her, or at least would look very different now. Maybe someday they'd take Emma on a photography trip, show her the world through a lens, teach her to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. But for now, everything she needed was right here in this gallery, in this town, in the life they'd built from the rubble of grief and the foundation of unexpected love. The exhibition stayed up for 3 months and led to more local work, exactly what Ava wanted. She developed a specialty in family photography that went beyond traditional portraits, instead documenting real moments of connection and growth. Word spread, and her calendar filled with clients who wanted authenticity rather than perfection. Emma thrived, her confidence growing alongside her height. She joined the school photography club, wielding an old camera Ava had given her with the seriousness of someone learning a craft. She still saw Dr. Morrison monthly, but the sessions had shifted from crisis management to normal childhood development. She talked about Sarah freely now, sharing memories with the casual ease of someone who'd learned that loving the dead didn't require suffering. Noah proposed expanding their family. Not right away, he'd said, but maybe in a year or two. Emma was excited about the possibility of a sibling, though she'd negotiated firmly for a sister because, in her words, we already have too much boy energy in this house. And Ava settled into her new life with the same dedication she'd once given to chasing assignments across the globe. She woke each morning in a house that felt like home, made pancakes for people she loved, captured moments that would become memories, and went to bed each night certain that she was exactly where she belonged. On the anniversary of her first day at the Brooks house, Ava stood in the same spot where she'd stood a year ago, in front of the blue-gray colonial with the basketball hoop and the slightly wild garden. But everything was different now. The garden was tended and beautiful. The house hummed with life rather than grief. And she wasn't an unwilling visitor serving a sentence, but a permanent resident building a future. Emma burst out the front door, calling back to Noah about something urgent involving her science project. He followed, exasperation and love evident in equal measure. When he saw Ava standing in the driveway, he paused. "You okay?" "Just thinking about how much has changed. A year ago today, I showed up here furious and terrified, convinced I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And now? Now I know I made the best mistake of my life." She walked into his arms, feeling Emma attach herself to their legs in a group hug. Losing that bet was the moment everything actually began. "So you're saying I should thank Derek Chen?" "Absolutely not. He's still a smug asshole who tried to humiliate me. But I'm saying that sometimes the universe uses smug assholes to get us where we need to be." Emma giggled. "You said asshole. That's a bad word." "You're right. I apologize. Sometimes the universe uses smug jerks to get us where we need to be." "Better." They stood together in the driveway, this family built from grief and stubbornness, and a bet gone spectacularly wrong. The afternoon light caught in Emma's hair, and Ava instinctively reached for her camera before remembering some moments were better lived than documented. This was one of them. Inside the house, Sarah's photographs still smiled from the mantel, integrated into a growing collection that included wedding photos and family portraits and candid shots of everyday life. The past and present coexisted peacefully, proof that love didn't have to be zero-sum, that hearts could expand to hold both memory and new joy. That night, after Emma was asleep and the dishes done, Ava sat in her studio editing photos from a recent client session. Noah appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of tea. He'd graduated from terrible coffee to decent tea, which Ava considered a major victory. "I love watching you work," he said, setting down the tea and settling into the chair beside her desk. "You get this expression like you're seeing something nobody else can see. I'm just finding the story in the frames. Every photo tells something if you pay attention." "Like that one." He pointed to an image on her screen, an elderly couple holding hands on a park bench, the woman's head on the man's shoulder, both of them looking at something beyond the camera's view. "What story does that tell?" "That love evolves but doesn't diminish. That comfort becomes its own kind of passion. That after decades together, sometimes you don't need words, just presence." She paused, studying the image. "That the best love stories aren't about grand gestures, but about choosing each other every day in small, unremarkable ways." "Is that what we are? Small and unremarkable?" "In the best possible way. We're not a fairy tale or a romance novel. We're real people doing the work of loving each other daily. That's more valuable than fireworks." Noah pulled her away from the computer and into his lap, kissing her with the familiar ease of someone who'd learned her rhythms and preferences. "I love our small, unremarkable life." "Me too." And she meant it. The girl who'd chased adventure across continents had found something more meaningful in pancake breakfasts and homework help and garden projects. She'd discovered that home wasn't a place on a map, but a feeling of absolute rightness with the people who chose to love you. Years passed in the way years do, both quickly and slowly, marked by Emma's growth in changing seasons and the accumulation of small moments that became treasured memories. Emma graduated from elementary school, then middle school, growing into a confident teenager who wanted to study both photography and social work. She talked about her mother easily now, sharing Sarah's wisdom with friends who'd never known her, keeping her memory alive through stories rather than grief. Noah's company promoted him to a leadership role that allowed more flexibility, which he used to be present for Emma's school events and Ava's exhibition openings. He'd learned to talk about feelings without stumbling, to be vulnerable without feeling weak, to build a life that honored his past while embracing his present. And Ava built a career that fed her soul rather than just her ego. Her work appeared in magazines occasionally, but more often it appeared in the homes of families she'd documented, on the walls of community centers, in the albums of couples celebrating anniversaries. She taught photography classes to kids in Emma's school district, passing on not just technical skills, but the art of seeing truly. They never forgot the bet that started it all. It became family legend, the story Emma told her friends with dramatic flair, how her dad's lawyer had tried to teach Ava a lesson and accidentally brought them together instead. Derek Chen was occasionally spotted around town, and Ava always made a point of waving cheerfully, knowing it irritated him to see how well his punishment had worked out for her. On Emma's 18th birthday, the three of them stood in the garden that had hosted their wedding, now fully mature and more beautiful than Sarah had probably imagined it could become. Emma was heading to college in the fall, planning to study photography and psychology, wanting to use images to help people heal. "I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately," Emma said, twirling in a patch of late summer sunshine. "About what she'd think of all this. Of us." "What do you think she'd think?" Noah asked gently. "I think she'd be happy that you found love again, that I found someone who taught me it's okay to remember her while also moving forward. I think she'd love Ava's work and the way the garden turned out, and how we didn't let grief turn us into ghosts." Emma smiled, wise beyond her years. "I think she'd be proud that we figured out how to be whole again." Ava felt tears sting her eyes. This was Sarah's daughter, resilient and compassionate and brave enough to hold space for complex emotions. And while Ava would never claim credit for who Emma had become, she was grateful to have been part of the journey. "Your mom would be incredibly proud of you," Ava said. "Not because you survived losing her, but because you learned to live fully despite it. That takes real courage." They stood together in the garden, three people bound by choice and love, and the understanding that family could take infinite forms. The story that had started with a bet and 30 days of resentful obligation had become a lifetime of chosen commitment. Sometimes Ava still photographed that garden, capturing how it changed with seasons and years, how it grew wild in places and ordered in others, how it became a living testament to the idea that beauty could emerge from neglect if you were willing to do the work of tending it. Her favorite photo from the entire collection wasn't technically perfect. It was slightly out of focus, the composition off-center, the lighting imperfect. But it captured the three of them on that first wedding day, tangled together in a hug under the rose arbor, Emma's face squished between them, all of them laughing at something someone had said. It wasn't a perfect photo, but it was a perfect moment, the moment they stopped being three separate people surviving grief and became a family choosing joy. And that, Ava had learned, was the only story that really mattered. Not the dramatic landscapes or exotic adventures or prestigious publications. Just this: the extraordinary gift of ordinary love, the privilege of showing up every day, the profound grace of being chosen and choosing in return. She'd lost a bet and won a life. And looking at her family in the garden Sarah had planted and they had nurtured, Ava knew with absolute certainty that she would make that trade every single time. Some endings were really beginnings in disguise. Some losses led to discoveries you never knew you needed. And sometimes the best thing that could happen was losing your freedom and finding your home instead.